All right. Can everybody hear me? How we doing? Doing good? Doing good? Doing good? Doing good? Uh-oh, we got an echo going on somewhere. 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 Do that. All right. Okay. How's it sounding, everybody? Are you getting an echo as well? I got an echo. Kind of doing something real quick. How's it sounding? Sounds good? Let's get this flip out screen going. Awesome. George, you're excited. I love it. Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for joining my little corner of the internet for the stream. You probably could have gone a lot of places, but I am super excited about this camera. And yeah, my name is Luke Woodward with Wedding Film Coach. I have a wedding film team, LW Films, somewhere out there. But yeah, I cannot wait for this to be released and announced to the world. Of course, I'm sure you've all been following all of the rumors and all of the speculation for the last like 3 years probably. I think the A7S II released back in 2015, and pretty much ever since 2017 everybody's been ready for another one, the A7S III, and so I know we're all excited. Hey, I think when a lot of people jumped on, you said where you are from. If you haven't already said where you're from in the chat, go ahead and put that in there. We'd love to say hello to you and just kind of know where everybody is coming from. I am in Kentucky, United States, and I'm super excited to be hanging with everybody. Australia, so good for you to be here. George from Australia. San Francisco, New York, Greece. Awesome. New York City, baby. Yeah, I'm seeing some familiar names. Some of you guys have been in the comments and some of our videos leading up to this. Thanks for joining us. All right, India, Dubai, I think, and Thailand, Italy, Hawaii, Philippines, Indiana. Hello, Winnipeg. You know, everybody I meet from Canada, I just love. And so thank you for being here from Canada. All right, Costa Rica, France, Northeast India, Australia, India, Orlando, Florida, Malaysia. Man, it's so awesome that we get to hang out like from all across the world, especially in this time where like we can't connect like we usually could because of the virus going around. It's so neat to be able to connect with everybody. So man, I'm blown away. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. And I don't even want to do the math as to like what time it is for everybody. So if it's really late or really early, a big thank you to you for joining in. Wow, another Australia, another Canada, Brazil. I have several dear friends from Brazil. Obrigado, thank you for being here. Netherlands, midnight. All right, midnight here. I got you guys. Israel, Netherlands, Croatia. Gosh, this is incredible. Wow. I'm sure you didn't wake up today thinking like, I want to hang out with a guy from Kentucky. But that's what we're doing. All right, so I'm going to get rid of this lower third here and kind of move to just, let's see what I want to do. Have a few different things in here. So there are two links that I want to give you right away. Let me get rid of this lower third and the image. There we go. And I'll bring up, for any of you guys who are anxious, let me bring up the stream so you know that we're not missing anything. Okay, there we go. And so so there are two links that I want to give you. Let's see, what are they? Here we go. Let me refresh this. So it's just about ready. If you want to buy this camera already, here Here's the link in the chat box right now. So go to that page. If you want to buy this, go to that page, and it says it's starting at 10 a.m. Eastern time, which it almost is. And, okay. Hey, I think it's live. I just refreshed. It's live. I'm going to do my pre-order right now. Right now, live on the internet. Added to my cart. I want to get this done. I want to put y'all back to the stream just for a moment while I do this, just to make sure nothing pops up.
Alpha.
All right, I'm back. Just got mine pre-ordered. Hope you got yours. Is the sound sounding
now
okay
the
for
long
everybody?
wait is over. Today, we are proud to introduce a new full-frame mirrorless camera, the Alpha 7s Mark III, which will completely change the way creators can see the world. A new dimension of visual experience starts from here.
This
The
voiceover
Alpha 7s
sounds
Mark III
like it was
is a complete redesign of the whole
digital
S-series system.
voiceover.
Everything is new, including the image sensor and processor. Our goal is to meet and exceed expectations of the creators who've been waiting so long for this camera. Since its sensational debut back in 2014, sensitivity has been the root of the Alpha 7s series. Carrying on this legacy, the new Alpha 7s Mark III opens the unknown world of visual expression thanks to a newly developed Sony Exmor R back-illuminated CMOS sensor. To assure overwhelming picture quality, The new image sensor has 12.1 megapixel resolution, securing a large pixel size. Now, evolved with a back-illuminated structure, it produces the best ever 4K quality combined with high sensitivity. Pixel size matters because a large pixel is indispensable for shooting high-quality movies. The larger the pixel, the more incoming light with less noise, resulting in higher picture quality for all kinds of shooting occasions. On top of the legendary S series standing for sensitivity, the 7S Mark III has been enhanced with speed as well. The new image sensor boasts twice the data readout speed and a new focal plane phase detection autofocus system. The back-illuminated structure benefits not only in increased sensitivity, but also the data readout speed performance. In addition, a large amount of autofocus data can be transferred in real time. These improvements will greatly expand shooting capabilities and expression. To realize supreme imaging experience and versatile operation, a new image processing engine has been created, the Beyond's XR. This consists of two different processors combined and enhances up to 8 times higher processing performance compared to the conventional system. The innovative new engine is born with a new architecture, having
I think that's
capacity
where
aiming for
a
future
lot of the
imaging
features are coming from, that
experience.
new processor.
By combining the performance of the new image sensor and the new image processor, an enormous amount of data processing in real time can now be realized. This initiates a whole new dimension of visual expression. What is a new dimension of visual expression? The new Alpha 7S Mark III boasts the best ever supreme 4K movie quality in Alpha history. The Alpha 7S Mark III utilizes the rich data of full pixel readout without pixel binning or line skipping in every 4K recording format for every recording frame rate. The astonishing sensitivity performance allows creators to have more flexibility than ever to control exposure while maintaining beautiful picture quality. This is true for all lighting conditions.
It's amazing
Performance
that
in low
shot
light
is at
situations
409,000
have been improved
ISO.
on average 1 stop or more in mid to high ISO range
Wow.
when shooting S-Log 3. The dynamic range is a wide 15 plus stops for movies, allowing you to capture from shadow to highlight in various shooting scenes and conditions, and offering excellent flexibility during the post-production process. A new addition is the 10-bit depth, which has 4 times richer gradation compared to 8-bit, and 4:2:2 color sampling is available in every recording format and frame rate, either in 4K or Full HD. The Alpha 7S Mark III offers all intra-frame internal recording with the new XAVC SI format for both 4K and Full HD, up to maximum 1200 megabits per second when shooting 4K 5 times slow motion in slow and quick mode. Think of the benefits of combining all of these capabilities together. These features are all applied to the highest frame rate of 120p. Internal recording up to 120p in 4K and 240p in Full HD is realized. And the onboard slow and quick mode provides high quality but convenient in-camera processed slow motion recording and instant playback up to 5 times in 4K and 10 times in Full HD. All the latest Sony's autofocus technology, cultivated with Alpha, has been transplanted and evolved in Alpha 7S Mark III. Autofocus in movies is available in every recording format and frame rate, including 120p, where precise autofocus is required. You will experience the new shooting style, operation, workflow, and visual expression, overturning the common sense of manual focus control, opening the age of autofocus in movie shooting. The camera includes Sony's industry-leading AI-based real-time IAF, which has been refined to perform 30% better. Real-time tracking is also possible with the touch of a finger. Autofocus performance of Alpha 7s Mark III is not realized by the body itself. Lenses must equally respond as well. With over 50 native E-mount lenses, the Sony Alpha lens lineup is ready for the overwhelming movie autofocus and image performance when combined with the new camera. With all these advanced features combined together, the Alpha 7s Mark III will surely keep you inspired to create images like no other. This footage has been shot at 120p and edited to 5 times slow motion. Note how every single frame is in focus, even with such a shallow depth of field, even at an amazing sensitivity. When shooting 120p, your shutter speed needs to be higher, meaning sensitivity becomes even more essential for high frame rate shooting. Again, the large pixel does matter. For professional works, post-production workflow is critical. The Alpha 7s Mark III offers a variety of features to support this. The Alpha 7s Mark III includes S-Log2 and S-Log3 gamma curves, and the S-Log3 achieves up to 15+ stop dynamic range with 10-bit depth expandable to ISO 160. S-Log3 matching with professional camcorders in colors and tones has been improved for multiple camera operating scenes with Sony Cinema Camera Venice or professional camcorder FX9, for instance. The Alpha 7s Mark III also allows unprocessed 16-bit RAW output to an external device over HDMI with frame rate selectable up to 60p.
That S-Log3 is going to be
A
much more
full-sized
powerful than
HDMI
this
Type
camera.
A terminal provides a more secure connection with simple compatibility with other HDMI devices. The Alpha 7s Mark III adds XAVC HS
I really hope
format
we have that
recording
S Cinetone,
using
though.
HEVC
I don't
or
think they've mentioned it
H.265
yet.
codec, which has approximately doubled compression efficiency. It has an option for the convenient and instant workflow on-board hybrid log gamma, where you will experience finer gradation and smooth highlight roll-off thanks to the 10-bit color depth. In addition, Creative Look. The camera features 10 types of in-camera presets available for both stills and movies. This is helpful for quick delivery and saving you time without post-production. The whole system is redesigned for professional visual expression and operation. The Alpha 7s Mark III includes optical 5-axis image stabilization, which has been greatly enhanced with the new active mode dedicated to movie shooting, keeping 4K quality. It offers you very smooth and stable gimbal-like footage, especially when Sony's native wide-angle lenses are mounted. Please see this handheld footage stabilized only by in-camera active mode when walking straight. When shooting 4K, the new image sensor and processing engine reduce rolling shutter 3 times more than the Alpha 7s Mark II. Please see the result of minimized rolling shutter effect. For high-quality expression, the
It's
Alpha
not a great
7s
test,
Mark
but
III
that is,
utilizes
it looks
plenty
like
of
it's
data,
dramatically improved.
inevitably generating much heat. In order to minimize thermal limitation, effective heat dispensation measures have been newly developed, allowing for extended continuous 4K recording. For instance, the camera can shoot 4K 60p 10-bit 422 all-intra for over an hour until the battery ends. Additionally, the camera's multi-interface shoe supports digital audio interface for superb audio quality. Audio signal is digitized in the microphone and directly transferred to the camera in clean digital form without the need for external power supplies or connection cables. When the XLR K3M adapter is attached via MI shoe, this combination provides you a choice of capturing future-proofed 4-channel 24-bit recording in linear PCM audio internal of the camera. The new Alpha 7s Mark III features a vari-angle articulating monitor that rotates sideways and affords plenty of freedom for movie shooting. It can also be folded back in to protect itself when not in use. The monitor's touch operation capability also contributes to easy focus operations during movie shooting. You can also temporarily activate autofocus by the touch operation to override manual focus mode. The upgraded focus function includes customizable AF transition speed and subject shift sensitivity, which allows ideal rack focus expression even with autofocus. These settings are synchronized when using touch focus control as well. Widen your range of expression by leaving it to the camera. The camera has a completely redesigned menu system as well, which can be operated via the new touch screen.
Okay,
Parameters
new
can be
menu.
instantly
Lots of people are
selected
excited
by
about
directly touching them on the display. When movie mode is selected, the menu is changed to movie-dedicated configuration. Also, settings such as exposure and focus mode are stored independently for the still and movie modes. The Alpha 7S Mark III is also designed for photography with superior low-light capability. The new camera features the world's largest and highest resolution EVF, a 9.44 million dot OLED display with 0.9 times magnification. The camera delivers low noise throughout the camera's amazing sensitivity with refined color science thanks to the new Beyond's XR image processing engine. The newest autofocus technology and algorithm are applied for still image shooting as well. 759 AF points and 92% area coverage with low-light AF capability as low as EV-6. And 10 frame per second continuous shooting works with AF and AE mechanically and electronically for up to 1,000 consecutive uncompressed RAWs. For stress-free rapid data recording, the Alpha 7S Mark III has dual slots, both of which supports the SDXC UHS-2 card, and the Alpha 7S Mark III also adopted the world's first CF Express Type A memory cards, developed for the next generation of cameras for high quality and speed where enormous data writing is necessary, for example 4K 120p all-intra recording. Thanks to its compact size, no dedicated slots are necessary, meaning each card slot can accept both SD card and CF Express Type A. The new compact CF Express Type A card offers 700 megabytes per second write, 800 megabytes per second read speed, and are available in 80 gigabytes and 160 gigabytes. Also, a new card reader for the CF Express Type A and SD card will be available. One mount promises many benefits. The new Alpha 7S Mark III is part of Sony's powerful E-mount system, which includes 57 lenses that are compatible across not only the Alpha series, but also with our professional camcorders, whether they are full frame or Super 35. There is a lot more to explain, but let us finish the presentation here. Please take a note on many other exciting enhancements and features as shown. Imagination in motion. Thank you for joining us.
Okay. Okay, wow. Very, very interesting. Let's see, now it said that there was going to be a Q&A afterwards, but it's just a premiere and maybe it's coming up now? I don't want to... And definitely stick around. Nope, that's it. So... come back here. Okay, so yeah, wow. So what do you guys think? Good? Thumbs up? Thumbs down? What do you think? Yes, confirmed. Just Peachy Media, US $3,500 confirmed. A lot of people are saying it's 4,200 euros, and so that may, depending on where you live, may be a little bit different than the typical conversions. Already pre-ordered. I pre-ordered one. Definitely. Did anybody else pre-order? Did anybody else pre-order? Got a few pre-orders. Yes. Have to pay 1,000 more in Europe. Shoot, man, Sebastian, I hate that for you. Maybe you can get a friend over here in the States to buy one and ship it over to you. Maybe that would be cheaper. I don't know. There's more happening. You're missing more of the show. Let's see. Let me switch over to Alpha Universe. Okay. Got something going on here. Okay.
Experiences for others to view through our work.
Thank you. Thank you for the heads up there.
I pick up a tool, a camera, and that's
Yeah, on
my
YouTube it was over.
modality of creativity, but
Let me
you
get...
can go out and you can express yourself any way you want. We all have a different thumbprint.
Screen here.
When I have a camera in my hand, it's when I feel most comfortable. When I'm out exploring, out shooting, that's when I feel most at peace.
Now the technology just keeps getting better and better and better.
The Alpha 7s changed my career. I mean, I could see in the dark, basically, and there's no other way to put it, right? A veil had been lifted.
It completely transformed what I could even imagine
I'm working on it.
possible.
It was just a huge deal back then, and it's still a big deal now, and for the S3 to come out is massive.
I think some people didn't actually think it would ever exist.
I know one thing
That was
about
me.
Sony, the Alpha 7S3 is gonna be a complete game changer.
Come on, baby.
120 frames per second at 4K. In the dark.
I feel like the things that your eyes are able to see with this camera, it's like you're in a completely different world.
Do you mind standing on the edge? This is mental.
Here we go, guys.
We're shooting at 20,000 ISO.
And that's perfectly clean.
The autofocus is by far superior.
The screen.
I'm
feels
liking
nice
this
and solid.
presentation
Man,
a
this split
lot
screen
better
is
so far.
Nice. Oh
That
my
voiceover
God.
creeped me out a little bit.
This is unreal.
Crazy.
I seriously want to go back to every place I've ever been and shoot it with this camera.
Whoa. So that's probably 4K 120 right there.
I don't think I've ever.
That's sweet.
All right, so we're gonna take it from the top. Bucket to bucket to bucket to chop.
When there
Some
is
beautiful
no income, when there
shots.
is no job, when there is no project, like what does a camera mean? What does it do for you? It still gives you some sense of purpose.
Every once in a while, something comes around that changes the way we see the world.
It's one thing to have something that can shoot rad slow motion and low light, but to have it in a small package can help you tell more meaningful stories.
Some of the best shots of our lives right here, guys.
Isn't that the whole point of creativity, to share your stories, to make a connection? This is why I love shooting. It brings people together on both sides of the camera.
And I would say that in many ways,
That was a little cheesy.
that's what the world needs more of. It needs more of your perspective, your vision.
And when you find other people that share that vision, that's when you find your family.
That's cool. That's cool. All right, let's see if they're gonna have some Q&A here. Maybe. Maybe. Here we go. Hey, we got some Q&A coming up. All right.
5 Q&As today, and before we get started with Chris Burkhardt and Mike Bubalo, just a couple of housekeeping notes. Please enter your questions on the alphauniverse.com page. You can hit the question box right there and submit. And if you're watching us on Facebook, go ahead and send your questions there. We'll be monitoring both.
Wow.
And Chris Burkhardt and Mike Bubalo, thanks
Well,
for
well,
joining
well,
us today.
well.
Thanks for having me.
Chris, I'd like to start with you. We just saw some of what you were doing in that video. Tell me about how you were shooting with a new camera.
Absolutely. So I went to a national park in Alaska that I've always dreamt of going to.
Oh,
Alaska.
jealous.
It's larger than Switzerland and Yellowstone put together. And basically, for me, I focused on really two things. I wanted to focus on the slow motion video aspect by shooting from a plane. Actually, we flew over the Bagley ice field and we were shooting 2 Piper Cubs, 2 small planes flying really fast, handheld in a small area. So that compactness was really crucial for what we were doing. And then I shot in some ice caves right at the base of Rango St. Elias. And if you're familiar with ice caves, it goes from being really bright and beautiful to being super dark. So those are really the 2 activities I focused on, and I really tried to
turn the volume. Yeah, their volume is a little lower, but I will.
With the S2, and so this was kind of a real step up. I really wanted to see what it could do and really test its video capabilities.
And what did you think?
I mean, I was blown away. I mean, we spoke about this earlier, but there's something so special about when you're really in these moments where normally you'd need a tripod and you need a really patient subject, and you're like, okay, move slow. You know, I'm shooting, you know, a 1/5 of a second, but I was in this ice cave totally uninhibited, shooting, you know, ISO 8,000, 10,000, no quality difference, just beautiful grain-free images, allowing my subjects, my guides to move around really seamlessly. It was unreal. I mean, that was truly the significance. And a good camera, a great technology should allow you that freedom. It should afford you that ability to kind of work uninhibited and allow the creative process to just unfold. And so that was, for me, it was free, you know, and that's really why I think I lean towards that camera.
Thanks. And Mike, Chris was just talking about the dynamic range of the new camera and the high ISO capability. The previous generations of the a7s have been well known for their ISO capability. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty hard to dethrone the king of high ISO, but the Alpha 7S Mark II was the king of high ISO performance. It was the camera that's always been my camera of choice because of that. So like Chris said, you can shoot anywhere and feel unencumbered. Wherever you want to go, you can always shoot. And this camera takes it to another level. And it's not just about your high ISO performance, but it's about the color reproduction and the detail that happens in those high ISOs. So now, you know, we've dethroned our own people in terms of the king of high ISO. And that on top of having over 15 stops dynamic range makes this camera have possibilities that we just have, that no one's ever had in this type of camera before. And it's pretty impressive and opens up a lot of creative opportunities for a lot of people.
And what is the ISO range on the new camera?
Goes up to 409,600, which sounds crazy, which is the same maximum as it was on the Alpha 7S Mark II. But in my personal experience and some of the stuff that I've seen Chris shoot, I mean, it's usable in the 50,000, 100,000 range, and you can still create
this
content
ISO
at 400 and
going
still
to
be
be
able
so
to share it.
impressive.
It's
Let
really
me know if you have
does.
any
Like, when I say
questions
it
in the
really
chat.
changes
I'm
the way you
intentionally
create, it
trying to
really
be
does
quiet
change
so
the
you
way
can
you
listen
create.
to the content.
So Chris, what were you
You
shooting?
can
at?
definitely let me know if you have questions.
That's so significant what you just said. That is, it's actually usable at those high ISO ranges. For me specifically, a couple years ago, I made a film about surfing under the Northern Lights, and we were shooting at ISO 30,000 and putting it on a big screen, you know, a huge cinema screen, and we were able to get incredible results. And that blew my mind. That was truly what made this significant. So I just wanted to add there that it's not about how high the range goes, it's about the quality at those high ranges, and you're not losing tons of dynamic range by increasing that ISO. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's a really great point. It's all about the usability, right? You can pack specs into any device, but if it's not performing for you, if you just can't use it well, those specs don't mean a whole lot.
So,
Mike, I wanted to ask you about the new processor in this camera a little bit. It's got the new Bion's XR processor, which, how does that figure into the new camera? And tell me about that design.
So even though the Alpha 7S Mark III looks almost identical to the Alpha 9 Mark II and Alpha 7R Mark IV, it's completely new from the inside out. Everything on the camera is brand new, including that Bion's XR processing engine. So it's not just a processor, it's actually multiple processors with multiple components, and it's 8 times faster than any processor we put into an Alpha camera before. And it really is the brains of this camera. It enables us to do a lot of things that we can do. It enables us to have twice the readout speed, 3 times better rolling shutter, process all that information, and 1200 megabits per second inside the camera enables us to do all those things in the camera. And you'll see now with the Alpha 7S Mark III that it's really going to be the foundation and the cornerstone to where we go in the future, not just for our stills cameras, but for also our video cameras, because it is such a beast in terms of how much processing power it has and what it can do.
And that processing power came into play for you, Chris, because you were saying that you were shooting, some pretty extreme video in the aerial footage and doing some slow-mo and stuff like that. Talk to me a little bit more about that shoot.
Yeah, so it's a really complicated scenario when you're in a tight space. I mean, it's all about, the use case of the camera. So for me, we're in a plane, we have tiny bit of room, and we can't use something larger. We're really stuck using, the biggest bang for our buck, and that was the S3. And you're putting this camera out the window of the plane, shooting another plane flying at like 60 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour. And that was really crucial, is being able to have that functionality. You're not overheating. You're able to have really intuitive dial controls, switching back and forth. And I think the beauty here was the real kind of question mark, the what if, was how good of quality is this slow motion, right? And I was blown away. I mean, it was incredible. It felt like we were shooting off of a gimbal, right, up in the air, shooting this other plane right below us. And that, for me, it's really about testing it in those real world scenarios. I don't want to advocate for a camera that a DP or a director couldn't get behind and say, I know I can nail this shot. And what it does is you realize it opens up a whole new world of what you can do, because you can literally see in the dark. I mean, that is the true game changer. And I mean, that tagline, it's real, it's raw, and that's what the camera really truly does for you. It opens up a world of possibilities where normally tripods are like a ball and chain you'd have over your back and you'd have to drag around. You don't need that.
Right. Again, it's about that usability, that performance, and being able to really put it to good use when you're out there in the field. And like you said, tripods, we all know we're supposed to use them, and we all hate using them, and we all leave them in the car, right?
We love them, and they have their place, but man, when you can move around with the simplicity of not having it and knowing that it's like nighttime and you can shoot slow motion because you can bump that ISO up, that's special. Like, people are going to create footage that we've never seen before because of this camera.
Yeah. And you were mentioning just now, when you were in the plane and you were shooting in some of that kind of those demanding conditions, that the camera did not get hot on you, didn't overheat on you.
No, I mean, that's one real big factor, right? Is obviously it's kind of like nobody likes to talk about that, is like, what's the run time? How hot do these things get? And, obviously we're in Alaska, it's a cold environment, but inside these cockpits, it gets warm, right? And so we really wanted to test it by running it like as far as we could push it. And yeah, there was 0 overheating issues, which was really awesome. And I think just the intuitiveness of the controls from a video perspective, obviously, and a stills has evolved a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mike, could you speak a little bit to the heating and how Sony has overcome overheating issues with the A7S III?
Absolutely. So it was, again, like, this camera was really purpose built for this customer, for the professional videographer. We had that customer in mind, and then we built the perfect product for them. So obviously, being able to dissipate heat and heat management was one of our number one priorities. But we didn't want to take shortcuts. We didn't want to compromise. So we have, from the inside out, this entirely new heat management system that incorporates much of the inside of the camera. And we didn't want to have to put in fans, because once you put in fans, then you lose dust and moisture resistance. You create noise, so you can't use onboard microphones. So we created this this heat management system that actually works with the materials on the camera and incorporates totally inside the camera to give us over hour-long recordings in 4K 60p all eye at huge bit rates, or until the battery runs out, and even longer run times when connected to USB power. So the possibilities are really endless. The chances of it overheating are pretty slim. So,
And actually, we got a question here that just got
really
submitted,
awesome
and
about,
a question for you, Chris.
I want to beat this real quick about the overheating, but I wanted to mention to you real quick, if you want to get this camera from B&H and you haven't already done your pre-order, go ahead and apply for the Pay-Boo card. It's like B&H's own credit card, but if you get that card, it essentially removes the taxes. At least in the US, they give you like a rebate on the taxes immediately. So it'll save you, I think it saved me like $400-$500 or something. So check that out. Okay, back to the stream. Sorry about that.
And so yeah, we were filming for hours on end up there because the light's only so good for a certain period of time. So really trying to hone in on just being able to not only shoot normal footage, but slow motion, which was really our focus for that, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but it really can tax a camera, right? That's kind of the beauty here, is that we were really putting that to the test. Big bank rolls, with the plane shooting straight down, shooting kind of over the pilot's shoulder and whatnot, and zero issues. In fact, I was surprised and slightly concerned that the camera was going to be much larger because of the heating and cooling. I had heard, hey, this thing has incredible cool down capabilities. It's not going to overheat on you. Run times are better, efficiency's better, and I was shocked because it just fit in my hand just like any other of the R4, R3 range.
Mm-hmm. And how long did you have the camera actually, Chris?
I had it for longer than they probably wanted me to, and I tried to keep it after that. But I had it for about 2 weeks, and to be honest, there's this line in the video that's really funny. It's like, I want to go back to every place I've ever shot and shoot it with this, because it's so true. I mean, I'm thinking of the Milky Way, and I'm thinking of Northern Lights. I'm thinking of all these scenarios where, for me, I love the idea of going back and creating a better image, a better result. And that was kind of obviously it was summertime. I couldn't go shoot a lot of these things I wanted to do. So I'm just dreaming up ideas of how I could take this thing and shoot it at ISO 16,000, which is I believe that's its native ISO range or something like that. I mean, it's incredible being able to just utilize this thing as a real tool in your toolkit.
Yeah, you talk about going back to places and sort of just re-exploring them and seeing them with that new eye, knowing that there's different things that you can do now. That's really a powerful, kind of a message. That's a powerful ability, right? Is to be able to rethink all the places that you've seen one way and think about them a new way.
Also, it should be mentioned, this is something that people won't think about, but the screen, the way it articulates. So the screen folds out, kind of like the new vlogging camera, the Z1, whatever it's called. So that allows for maximum flexibility and creativity. Obviously, if you're a filmmaker, you want to put the camera on the ground, you can look at the screen. If you want to have it above your head, all of a sudden you've got a 3-4, 4 foot extension, right? Because you can reach this thing way up there. Being able to shoot in a confined environment, or in a creative environment where you want to put the lens right next to an ice cave or right outside the window of the plane, that screen articulating is huge. I mean, it sounds silly, but that's an absolute game changer, and something that I requested. A lot of the other Sony Alpha professionals requested. So that was a really big help and support.
Yeah, and that screen, as you mentioned, is also a touch screen. So it's all touch capable or touch controllable. So you have even more versatility. It's not just about being able to get that screen out of the way and be able to see what you're doing. It's about actually being able to control the camera.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So Mike, can you talk a little bit more about that touch screen and how that's working?
Yeah, so there's an entirely, to Chris's point, having that variable screen is impressive because, like he said, small spaces, you can put it against the windshield of a car on a dashboard and be able to see what the camera's seeing and be able to do these things, or put it on a video rig without having to. And
so
be able
funny
to see
how
what the
they're
camera's
talking
seeing.
about this
And
flip out screen, like the first person that's done it. Everyone else is like, yeah, okay, finally, we know exactly how we can use it.
On the outside of the camera on the top to access the menu, and now the entire menu is touchscreen capable, so you can be able to go through the menu, scroll through that menu, and be able to do everything.
That is
from
nice.
The touchscreen.
The menu is
Beyond
touchscreen
that, I'm
now.
sure we've worked with Chris, we've worked with tons of people. Again, this is a product that we designed specifically for this market, and we've been working with thousands of photographers and videographers over these years, for the last 5 years, to create the best menu system. And now we have a vertically driven menu system that now has your subject on the left, the folders in the middle, and then what's within those folders on the right-hand side. So you can scroll through You can get through everything, and you can go through all those functions very easily. It's just very intuitive. The whole thing is just very efficient, so to speak.
Yeah, I wanted to just give a little high five to the menu creation. This has always been a pain, a little bit of a struggle for me with some of the older cameras. Is the menus. Obviously it's amazing because there's so much, but it becomes overwhelming really quickly. And this menu was so intuitive. I mean, literally, it's completely redesigned. So it takes a minute to kind of, if you're used to using the R4 or the S2, but the moment you dive in there, you're like, oh my gosh, all the things I need, like video settings, they're all right in front of me. And that was huge, especially in really like crux situations where you need to switch something fast. You're going between shooting modes. You want to shoot in flat light. You want to, this and that. It's right in front of you. And that was a surprising change, actually.
Yeah, and we're going to get a full tour of that menu system in a Q&A in just a bit here with another member from the Sony Pro Support team. But Chris, I want to talk to you just a little bit more about that experience of being able to use that menu that way and how that was kind of freeing for you. I find that menus, they can be complicated. A lot of it is just kind of getting used to it. But this menu is more intuitive and has just been laid out in a totally different way and really reimagined.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of funny when we dive in. This is the nerdy side of us coming out because we love this stuff, right? We
Have
love
the menu screens ever bothered anybody else
time
shooting on the
in
Sony
those
cameras? Like
situations.
for me, it's like I figure it out, I
It's
figure
really
what I need to
important,
have in
right?
my quick
And
menus
being
and
able
my
to
quick
obviously
buttons, and
switch
then
between
I
shooting
really
modes,
don't
switch
go
between
into it
frame
again.
rates,
Is this a big deal to
and
you
just being
guys?
able to obviously dial in a custom menu setting. As Mike mentioned, that was really easy. As were before, custom menus are kind of challenging, but having everything you want right there was great. I found, at least for me, the key thing is also that ability to put the camera like in the front of a windshield and use the touch screen when the screen is facing you. I mean, before it was like take the camera and basically flip it around and try to dial it in and then push record and set it up, hoping you're getting the shot. This is a game changer. I mean, you can have the camera pointing directly down, pointing directly up from the ground, and dial in your menu settings right there. That's an incredible feature that I think shouldn't be understated. As much and as important as the technology is of the low light, the new sensor, this is like a really incredible feature, and it mostly just saves you time and energy. And again, for me, I'm not the tech savvy dude here. I'm all about experience, and when a camera can heighten that creative experience, it's freeing. It takes the shackles off and allows you to focus on, what do I want to create? What do I want to do? I want to get this POV shot of me and the pilot, or an ice cave image where I'm like, bringing the camera right along the wall of the ice cave. That's really special to me.
And talking about the ice caves, tell us a little bit more about that shoot. I'm really intrigued by that. I've never been up there to that part of Alaska.
I mean, ice caves are a really special phenomenon, right? And we're lucky enough to be able to go into one kind of early summer because they usually shut down. But this scenario was just so unique, right? Being able to be in a situation where we had an ice cave that was really dark, right? The deeper you go, the darker it gets, right? And so you're almost thinking, every 10 feet I step back, I've got to bump it up another like 200, 300 ISO. And we were in the very back of this thing, probably like 300, 400 feet back, right? There's a waterfall in the middle. I've got my guides moving around. They're going across this like kind of technical little traverse. And that was so unique because I didn't have to tell anybody, hey, slow down. Hey, do that. Like, just pause right there. I could just let people move around freely. And in the past, that, shooting in ice caves or shooting in low light situations, you're shooting at like a second or a fifth of a second, depending on the amount of light in there. I mean, these are notoriously dark, right? But also notoriously beautiful. And what you find, to Mike's point, the dynamic range, right? Let's dive into that. What does that mean? It basically means the ability to kind of bring back that detail in the shadows and in the highlights. Talk about a harsh situation. Ice cave, you have sun coming in usually from one entrance, and the rest of it's dark, or it's a saturated blue. So being able to bring back that detail, but also be able to have that contrast still play a part in the image was huge. I mean, this is a really special thing, right? Being able to kind of bring back some of that sun detail, some of that light hitting the water, but also have the colors, because we're trying to kind of reimagine and or recreate what we saw with our eye, and nothing will ever be as good as that. But in this situation, I mean, I had more visible light than I could see with my own eye. It was really special.
And so, Chris, you really did use the camera in this kind of hybrid way where you were shooting both stills, a lot of video, a lot of stills, doing that.
Yeah.
That's kind of how you just kind of go through life, yeah?
Yeah, and I mean, I think the key thing here is that I'm always looking for a camera that can do both and do both well. And I think that in some ways, you know, you always feel like, oh man, I'm using this great camera, but I'm compromising the high ISO capability. It's not the camera for nighttime. Like, I really wanted to test this from a stills perspective first and foremost. Does it have the quality that I can print images that I just printed my first image with the camera to test it, to see, because that's a huge part of my business. I don't want to recommend a camera to somebody that, you know, that I'm going to say, well, the R4 is way, way better. No, this thing holds its weight. I mean, it is incredible. And I would say in many ways, the ability to have incredible video and put it in that mode and then shoot in extremely low light. For me, most of what I'm shooting is in harsh conditions. It's in dark, it's in storms, it's in places where I don't want to be inhibited by the quality of the camera. And that was truly kind of the situation here. And as I mentioned before, sorry, I know I'm blabbing, but the S2, it changed my career. I mean, it changed my life, truly. That camera allowed me to create images. I won an X Games gold medal with that photograph that I shot at ISO 30,000. I mean, it was only because of that technology and hopefully a little creativity from my end that allowed me to do that. And so this camera, I'm blown away. I'm like trying to reimagine what I can do. It's getting all the creative juices churning again.
You know, talking about kind of that hybrid way of shooting, this camera has a brand new sensor. Mike, can you speak to a little bit more detail about the new sensor in the camera?
Absolutely, yeah. So there's about that sensor. So it is a brand new sensor from the ground up. It's back illuminated, meaning that, believe it or not, a lot of the sensors that are out there in the world are now, the electronics and the wiring are on top of the photosensitive material. They're in between those pixels. So we just moved them underneath. So now not only do we have 12 megapixels, which gives us huge pixels, but we have even larger photo sites because those electronics are no longer in front, they're on the back. So the nerdy stuff aside, it gives us the ability to get the super high ISO performance, the over 15 stops dynamic range. But on top of that, we wanted this sensor, again, was purpose built for the best 4K image quality. It was purpose built to give you the best possible 4K you could possibly get, because we have full pixel readout in every single mode, from 30p, 24p, all the way up to 120p. There's no line skipping, no pixel binning. It's full pixel readout all the time. And there's no compromise. So there's no asterisks, so to speak, when you're talking about the 4K image quality on this camera. I don't know if I'm overstepping and getting into it early, but the autofocus of the sensor, the phase detection autofocusing system in this camera really separates itself from the Alpha 7S Mark II and brings us into a realm now of the autofocusing speed of the Alpha 9 Mark II or the Alpha 7R Mark IV. And like Chris, for you said, like in X Games now, you can not only shoot at 50,000, 100,000 ISO, but you're going to be able to have the subject tracking and the low light focusing like no camera's ever done before. So,
well, and it's not so much even that it's lightning fast. It's super fast, but it's smooth. And that's the thing, is it's a usable autofocus. That's the difference, right? Is I've seen cameras where it's like jumping back and forth, and I mean the subject detection on it is incredible. Like the contrast that it can isolate is amazing. I mean, I was really blown away with that, because we traditionally we're always kind of, okay, I'm going to shoot manual focus. I'm going to be safe here and just do it myself. But being able to rely on that autofocus was really amazing, especially in a situation where, again, you're already shooting in almost dark conditions. The camera's seeing more than your own eye, and it's focusing.
Yeah, and it goes to what you were saying before, where the hardware, it's no longer having to manipulate the hardware to get the shot that you want. You can actually let the hardware do its job, and then you can be more creative and more free to do what you want. Like you said, that freeing feeling is only capable because the hardware does its job and you don't have to worry about it. So,
this is why that relationship, I think, within the Sony team is so great. I mean, to be honest and just to be totally transparent, like being able to give feedback to like the designers and the engineers and then see it come to life. I've never worked with any company that's done that, and that's really special, because you're seeing instant feedback like actually being applied, and what, like you said, Mike, it really frees you as a creative and allows you to kind of go out and be like, okay, now I can focus on my vision and not trying to understand this menu and trying to use hacks to kind of like, oh, I got to use this recorder or this thing to like get the most out of it. That's a really unique thing.
Yeah.
And Chris, we got a question on Facebook. Not on Facebook. We got a question submitted to Alpha Universe for you, asking about how you use autofocus and whether you use it for both stills and video.
That's a great question. So typically for me, I'm a single shot autofocus guy when it comes to stills. Reason being, I mean, I love the continuous, I like all those things, but I'm usually like thinking of where my shot is, my subject is going to be, pre-focusing, and then I'm just firing through that sequence or that experience, right? Mainly because I think that a lot of times if you're shooting continuous, you're shooting like a race car track, or the car's coming towards you, or wild animals. For me, I'm usually in kind of a slightly, I guess you could say, scenario where I kind of know what's going to happen. I'm kind of premeditating this action, so I really like that single shot. And then when it comes to video, oftentimes it depends on the shot, right? If it's a static shot and someone's moving through the scene, I'm just pre-focusing. But when we're moving around, say for example, one of my favorite shots that we got, and I'm working on an edit right now from my trip, but we're kind of racking focus along this ice cave wall, and we're letting it happen with the autofocus, like picking our spot and moving. And I mean, you're talking really shallow depth of field, beautiful ice patterns, kind of like coming forth in front of your eyes as you move back and forth. And I was really cool, because in the past you'd have to like, do this manually yourself, and now you're able to just like let the camera do its thing. That was really unique. So it oscillates, to answer the question. It really oscillates between both of them, depending on the situation and the time. But the point is that knowing that you can use both is crucial, right? Knowing that you can rely upon the autofocus is important. And I would say, to all the video people out there, like autofocus is kind of like this taboo word. We don't really say it much because people are like, oh yeah, whatever. Like, I'm not going to use that. Like, right. It's all about like, manually racking focus, but being able to have the option is really special, especially when you can barely see with your own eyes. And I truly mean that. Like, the camera sees way more than you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because like you said, videographers, as soon as you say autofocus, they're like, whoa, autofocus.
Yeah.
Like, but it's really true autofocus that you can use. And I know you didn't do a ton of portraiture in your video.
I use autofocus all the time. I'm definitely one of those people like, hey, if it's a tool that you can use to do better work, quicker work, then use it. Nothing is inherently bad or good. It's just however you use it. And so use a tool to make good work.
Focus, and then allowing you to kind of move with your subject is special.
It's ridiculous.
We got a question actually related to what you were just saying about external recorders, asking about the bit rate of the camera. And Mike, maybe you can answer this and clarify it a little bit. Sure. So talk to me about the bit rate and what it records internally and what you have to do externally.
Yep. So internally, the camera is 10-bit 422. The maximum is 10-bit 422, all I, and that's in all shooting modes. That's from 4K 24 all the way up to 4K 120p and full HD at 240 frames. So it's 10-bit 422. All the way through, and all I available in all shooting modes. But the biggest thing with this camera, not the biggest thing, one of the huge things in this camera is that you can do 16-bit raw output at 4K 60p, which is almost never been done before. It's never been done before on a camera like this, that's for sure. So it's usually reserved for very high-end cinema cameras and production cameras. So to be able to do full 16-bit raw output at 4K 60p is massive. And again, to Chris's point before, to keep the size of the camera the same as what we've had before, with the heatsink, with 16-bit output, with all these features is, I sometimes am in awe of what the technicians and the engineers have been able to do.
Yeah. I mean, I keep coming back to that heat sink because there's just an awful lot of technology, a lot of speed built into this. The new sensor, the new processor, all of it, and yet not to be overheating is really significant. I mean, that's without having to have a fan or anything else in the camera.
Yeah, that's why I've always said, like, I've probably gotten the question, where's the Alpha 7S Mark III every day for the last 5 years? And my answer's always been, we don't have the technology yet for it. Like, trust me, we're making the best product for you. We just literally couldn't invent the technology yet. And now we have, between the Bions XR, between the new sensor, and you're welcome. So, yeah.
And it's funny because it's like, people think, like, oh, why is this camera taking so long to come out? We're like,
Hey, so what do you guys think? Would you have rather have waited less and have a lesser product, maybe around like 2018, about the time the A7 III came out, or are you glad that we've waited this long and it's better now? What do you think?
It exceeded my expectations.
I think that's actually a great spot to leave it for today. I want to thank both of you for being our guests today. Chris Burkhardt, thanks for joining us from afar, and Mike Bubulo, thank you very much. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with a deep dive into the menu system with Sony Pro support. Thanks very much, guys.
See you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Chris. Thanks.
Yeah, cheers, Mike.
Okay, so that was a pretty good Q&A. I enjoyed hearing from actual people that had used it and then a designer. We're going to keep rolling here with this next. They're going to talk about the menu, and I think this is maybe like an engineer or pro support. So we're going to keep rolling. I hope you guys stick with us. Real quick, let me throw this up. Throw this up. So if you haven't already gone there, go to freecameraguide.com, freecameraguide.com, and I'm not trying to sell you anything at all. It literally is a free camera guide. When the A7S III comes out, I'm going to be putting together a guide to that camera, going through all the menus, going through all the shooting options, letting you know what works best, what has little ticks in it, let you see actual footage from all the different movie modes. And so I will be developing that over the first few weeks that I get the camera. As we already saw, it is going to be shipping September 24th. Unfortunately, that's a long time that we have to wait, 2 months. I mean, I felt like it was Christmas morning today, but instead of Christmas morning, it is like, Thanksgiving or Halloween, and I still have to wait 2 more months for Christmas to come. But yeah, go to that freecameraguide.com, put in your info, sign up to be notified when that free guide is out, and I'll send it straight to your inbox. Yeah, let me throw that down. Okay, so let me catch up in the chat here. A lot of people are upset that it costs a lot more outside of the U.S. I hate that. I have no idea why it's less expensive here in the U.S. Okay, they're starting the stream again, so I'm going to shut up for a minute.
And I'm joined by Sony Pro Support's Van Nguyen. Van, thanks very much for being on the live cast today. Before we get started, I just want to remind everybody that this is a live Q&A. If you're joining us on alphauniverse.com, you can feel free to submit a question on the page there. If you're joining us on YouTube or Facebook, go ahead and submit questions. We are monitoring those. And Van, I'd like to really just dive in. You're nicely set up. You've got the camera right there with you. Perhaps you can give us a look at the camera on the outside, and then let's take a quick look through the menus.
So probably see some of the visuals I'm going to show to my camera here. You can see it looks very similar to the Alpha 7 R Mark IV, the Alpha 9 II. Of course, this one button you move, so we've got the video Woodward button, Woodward button there, and C1 over here. Real quick, I'm going to turn the camera to the side here so you can see there is a new door mechanism. So a lot of people, they liked having that extra lock there. So you're going to basically pull down, slide back, and it flips open. So you've got the dual card slots here. Again, both can accommodate an SD card, UHS up to UHS Phase 2, or the new CF Express Type A cards. So that just clicks in like that. It's the same Z battery. There is a new cable lock on the side here, which I've got plugged in. So I'm supplying some additional power with a USB-C cable here, and I've got a full-size HDMI plugged in so we can see kind of the internals of the camera.
Okay, power over
quickly,
USB-C. That's awesome.
There are a couple of jacks right here, which I can still close if I want to. There's a microphone jack up on the top and a headphone jack here, so you can monitor your audio. Down at the bottom is the micro USB or multi-port, so that's still there as well. And other than that, it looks very similar again.
Sorry, that's really dark on my screen too.
R Mark IV. It's a good thing I've got a good tripod here.
It's hard to see the
so
detail.
yes, the Alpha 7 R Mark IV and the Alpha 9 Mark II. So in terms of the ergonomics, the grip, and the feel of it, so very similar there. Something that I will point out that I don't know that everybody picked up on is here in the iCup, the viewfinder has we've repositioned the sensor here. So whenever you have your face up to it, it seems to be a little more flush. If you look at the previous iCups, the sensor for the auto switching for the EVF was up at the top and it was a little kind of indented. So occasionally you would get some dust or some dirt inside there, and it would make the transition between the viewfinder and the monitor sometimes kind of bug out. So we would always kind of tell customers, hey, get a little cotton ball or a little lens cloth and just kind of clean out that sensor. But because they redesigned it, it looks like
I want to
it's gonna be a
see
lot less of
that
kind of
screen
malfunction,
flip open
or
and see if it can
unintended
still
operation.
tilt
So that's
with
really
all
good
those
to see.
cables plugged
so,
in.
Little things like
That's
that
one
that
reason
really,
me and a lot of other people were saying we wanted to
show
have
that
the same
product
screen
designers have really been
functionality as the Panasonic
taking the feedback
S1H,
and implementing it to the best of their ability. So
because it tilted and then flipped,
ready to
and
get
so
to
it
good?
took it out of the way
Yeah,
of all
since you
those
got the camera right
cables.
there, let's. I know everyone wants to see these new menus we've been talking about, so let's dive in.
And I just want to put a disclaimer out there that all the friends and photographers that have been hitting me up, I really have not had this camera very long, so don't hold me to the, okay. So let's go to the internals of the camera here. So I've got a little setup here. I'm gonna kind of level it out. So first and foremost, this is kind of the standard view. If I hit the display button, I can kind of cycle through these different overlays, and this is kind of the all info kind of overlay. So you've got very familiar at the bottom. You've got the exposure settings up and down the right side and the left side. A lot of those things kind of stayed the same. Something that gets me really excited is up at the top. You can see I'm already set to XAVCS 4K at 120 frames per second and 422 10-bit, which is amazing that this camera can shoot that to an internal memory card. But the menu is probably the thing that people have, transitioning, especially customers who have transitioned from other camera manufacturers. It's the biggest gripe that I hear from customers a lot of times. So when I hit the menu button, it takes me into here. And while I'm doing this screen sharing, I'm unable to use the touchscreen to navigate the menu. So just kind of heads up. But I can switch to the other view in a second and kind of show you. But this is it. So as Mike and Chris Burkhardt had said in the segment previous, it's more columnar. It's basically
Columnar.
Yeah, I don't know what the term would be, but it's more laid out kind of vertically. So or horizontally, I guess you should say. So you got the tabs across the left side of the frame. Here we've got shooting tab, the exposure and color tab, autofocus or focus tab, playback, network, and setup. And one of the things that we've done is we've really kind of reorganized a lot of things so that it seems more natural to get to what you're looking for. So for instance, I'm on movie mode on the mode dial on top. And so the first thing when I go into image quality here, this page is movie quality settings. So I can go in here to file format, and here are all the new file formats that are available. XAVCS 4K, that's been on previous models. There are some new formats here, so XAVC HS 4K, and then of course XAVCS I, which are the all intra modes here, so 4K and HD versions. So the newest one that probably customers are going to be really excited about is this XAVC HS 4K. So when I select that, you do get a little message saying, hey, just be warned, you have to have a corresponding playback environment to be able to watch this video. So hopefully you know what you're doing, and you can edit it and package that and deliver it as you need. So when I go to movie settings now, I've got the ability to shoot 4K at up to 120 frames per second. So, which is pretty awesome. Again, there's the warning. Not every, PC or Blu-ray player or anything is going to be able to play back this quality. The next option here, so this is the frame rate, of course.
Is he just talking
is
about the
record
120
setting.
frames per
So here you
second?
get to select your
Or is there
bitrate,
something else
your
he's
color
talking about there with
subsampling.
the limitation
So you've got
of display?
up to 280 megabits.
I didn't quite understand
with
that.
422 color subsampling and 10-bit color. That's available here, and these options will change depending on the file formats that you're using as well. So, for instance, if I back up and I go to maybe the All Intra 4K, I think a lot of people are probably interested in understanding what's available here. So here you've got that All Intra capability up to 60 frames, and of course up to 600 megabits internal. Now that's the only option here, so it's grayed out. And when I try to select it, it says, hey, this is the only option basically. So you can't change that. When you select All Intra 4K at 60 frames per second, it's going to be what it is.
Van, while we're talking about these 4K settings, we got a question in from YouTube asking about when recording in 4K, does the screen black out if you're using an external monitor?
So it does not. So that was something that we actually got a lot of feedback about. So yeah, if you were recording to an external monitor, you can actually set that up as well. So and a lot of those, external recorder questions, you're going to be spending a lot more time down here in the setup tab, which is where you would find typically your HDMI settings and that type of thing. So I can kind of get to that.
And kind of related to that, we got another question in from YouTube asking about the CF Express media and what it will be used for. Just thinking about that related to where you would go external versus what you would do internal.
Yeah. So again, we didn't want to compromise with regards to, the capabilities of the camera or anything like that. So you can actually do quite a bit internal. Almost all of the record modes that are available, you can shoot internally with the CF Express card, which is here on the left side. This is a standard SD card here, so you can kind of see the size difference here. But depending on that card, you should be able to shoot everything. The only time that you would want to shoot to an HDMI external recorder at this point is if you need that 16-bit RAW, which is massive. That's the only thing that you can't do to the card, basically.
Gotcha. I interrupted you as you were going through the menus, so please continue.
No problem. We're doing this live. So yeah, I wanted to show for that that question, the person who asked the question, this is where you would get to the HDMI output settings. Then of course you can select record media and HDMI output, all the resolutions. Here's the RAW settings here. I'm not connected to a 4K switch, so unfortunately I can't stream 4K out to my HDMI right now. But that's something that you can test out in the field at some point whenever the product is available. But yeah. So the other thing I want to show is up here at the top, we've moved the My Menu option to the very top. So it's much faster to get there. Of course, you can actually go in and set up the My Menu so that it shows up first when you hit the menu button on the back of the camera. And this is really nice because this is fully customizable. I've put in a few options here: peaking display, format the cards, record media settings. Just things that are a little more kind of deeper down in the menu that I want to be able to quickly access. And so, the My Menu system is really kind of a nod to, hey, if you are getting to this point where you want this to be an extension of just your thought process, we don't want to limit you to that, to how we've organized it, so you can actually organize it yourself. I imagine, the way I describe this to a lot of my customers is I say, imagine if you got in a rental car and you could personally move the windshield wipers and the hazard switch and all the things around so that you could access them when you wanted to. It's kind of that kind of concept. So we're building products that are really meant for efficient use by any photographer. And who's to say the way that we lay this out is the best? We've got a lot of feedback from our customers about, I wish this made more sense.
I feel like Sony's customization for their My Menu has been pretty good in the past, but just the fact that they've been working on this makes me excited that it may even be more customizable now. So that's good.
For instance, and you'll also see you know, the icons change a little bit too. So over on the left side of the camera menu, you see there's a little film strip beneath the camera shooting tab icon and the exposure icon and the autofocus manual focus icon. So if I switch the dial to still photography mode, and then I go back into the main menu, there you see it switches to stills. And up here under image quality, you know, that menu page has changed. So it makes, you know, you still have access to, you know, the movie settings down here if you want to, but now the things that you use in that mode bubble kind of up to the top.
So it's kind of, it's almost like it's dynamically adjusting for you as you move through.
Exactly, yep. And it just makes more sense. So you can actually, you know, if I'm looking for, you know, let's see here, image stabilization settings, you know, right here, zoom, this is for clear image zoom or optical zoom, shooting display, all this good stuff. So, let's say I'm in movie mode and I want to bring up, you know, picture profiles. So I can actually go into my settings here. And under, here we go, color tone, sorry. Here's a picture profile. And so I can go in and I can adjust, you know, if I want to shoot S-Log 3, S-Log 2, they're going to be all here. So these picture profiles haven't changed. They're all still here. They're the same as they were in some of the previous alpha bodies that we've had. PP10 is the newest, which has HLG or hybrid log gamma, kind of an instant HDR. So I'll go ahead and select that there.
Van, we got a question that came in about from a live shooter asking about HDMI resolutions for output. What are the HDMI resolutions for a live shooter?
Yeah, so if you're outputting via HDMI, let's just go right into the menu and select that there. So 4K or 2160p, 1080p, and then of course 1080i. Auto is going to sense, of course, automatically, but yeah.
And for the frame rates?
So the frame rate is going to be up to 120p, just like you would have internally as well.
Gotcha.
So you can shoot 4K 120p, 4K 60, 4K 24, or 30. So.
And we got a question in from YouTube about the excuse me, about the frame rates, asking if the sensor is cropped for 120 240p modes.
It is not. The nice thing is, again, you know, we kind of talk about the uncompromising design that we've done. The Alpha 7S Mark III is able to shoot full sensor width, and you know, actually this comes up from time to time where customers, you know, kind of say, well, why is it a 12 megapixel sensor? And it's on purpose. If you're shooting with, you know, the sensor itself is a 4:3 aspect ratio, and if you're shooting 16:9 aspect ratio, you're going to get kind of the top and the bottom kind of cropped off a little bit. And there's actually about 2 megapixels on top and 2 megapixels on bottom that aren't being used if you're using this full sensor width. That being said, when you shoot 4K, it's actually in QFHD 16:9 aspect ratio. You're actually getting a 1:1 pixel ratio for your video footage. So exactly 8.3 megapixels, which is exactly the resolution for 4K. Yeah.
Okay, and can you back out and show us how you navigate the menus using the touch screen?
Yeah. So let me switch to my other camera here. I'm going to pull out the HDMI so I can see on the back of the screen here. And yeah, so you can tap. Oh, you know what? First thing you need to do is turn on the touchscreen. So I'm going to come here, and I can just tap here. I can scroll up and down, and then of course go in, do all this stuff. I can still use the navigation keys here around the jog wheel. I can use the multi-selector here as well. And then again, the nice thing is, if I'm standing behind the camera, this is all nice. You know, I can tab between the different pages here. But if I'm standing in front of the camera, you know, I'll need to flip this screen out so that I can see it, and then I can still use the touch panel to adjust that.
And as we're doing this kind of a virtual walk around, we got a question regarding that flip screen and the menu. Is it possible to turn the menu around, or rather to turn the flip screen around in a protection mode?
Yep, so it'll flip out, rotates, and then of course can close up, so you can prevent some accidental knocks and dings to that LCD screen as well.
And we also got another question from Facebook while we're looking at the outside of the camera. And this is a little bit related, I think, to the questions we were getting regarding the heat sink in the previous segment. Is the body weather sealed?
Yeah, so the body is weather sealed, and one of the things that I noticed with especially the doors is, it seems like the channels here are deeper, so it actually feels really good in terms of, you know, how solid they are to press in and pull open. So definitely, you know, we'll have to see you know, how the public tests it out. But it looks and feels much more robust than previous.
I think that's a big improvement, having the weather sealing. From what I heard, it was like a mesh kind of sealing, so it still allows the venting of it to prevent overheating. So that's really nice. I'm excited to test that out, or just to look at it closer. Also, I still want to see him flip that screen out. And see, I don't think he can. I don't think he can flip the screen out and tilt it with all those cords plugged in on the side, which is,
you know, these little anchors here for the strap.
Stinks.
They typically will kind of flip around, but and make noise when it clangs against the body of the camera. So hopefully they continue to use these anchor clips, because if you're going to be using this on a gimbal or something, you don't have to take the time to try to take these little anchors off. You know, they'll be nice and noise-free. So you can see it takes a little bit of force, but you've got some really solid doors there, some really deep channels to keep that weather sealing really, really good. So yeah, full-size HDMI on the front here. So you'll notice this is typically where you would see a PC sync port for a flash, maybe an Ethernet jack if you're looking at the Alpha 9 Mark II. That type of thing, but
so
this particular camera,
to me, that's the biggest jump in technology. The little hangers that don't rattle whenever
that was a really
you
item.
don't have your strap on.
You know, monkeyed with the smaller connectors, having a full size is just such a nice feature, nice attention to detail.
Yeah, so you've got the mini jack here for the an analog microphone if you're using a third-party microphone. Of course, you've got the headphone jack there for monitoring, the high-speed USB-C, and the multi-port or the USB micro. Another thing that I want to point out is, you know, we do have the multi-interface shoe, the return of the multi-interface shoe up here on top. So let's take the cover off. And you can see there's little pins at the top here. So if you're not familiar with Sony accessories and Sony cameras, this of course acts as a standard hot shoe, but also allows you to connect other accessories like you know, microphones. And the nice thing about the Sony microphones is that the camera body itself will power the microphone. So if you've ever used a third-party mic and they don't have a battery indicator that tells you how much battery life is left, you're always going to run that risk if you're going into an interview or going to a situation where you're trying to record audio, and if that light turns off and you don't see it, you know, half of your movie is basically going to be no audio.
Has anybody tried any of the new Sony on-camera mics that connect to the hot shoe digitally? I know they came out with one a while ago, but I've never tried it. Are they good? Are they worth the investment? I'm sure they're more expensive. Let me know if you've had any experience with those in the chat.
That has a digital mode, so you can actually have less interference happening when the signal is getting from the microphone down into the file.
Van, we got a question from Facebook asking about the record button. Is it a dedicated record button?
So you can customize it, just like a lot of a lot of the buttons on our Sony bodies. You can customize a lot of these for your own layout. Let me pop this strainer leaf back on. So it's kind of a different shape, you know. So you kind of straddle the doors here between these two pieces, and then hold it kind of on there, press in the little plunger, and turn to kind of lock it in. And I'm going to plug back in my additional power source so that my battery doesn't run out. And the nice thing is, you know, I'm actually using a MacBook Pro charger to offer power delivery into the camera. So, you know, in previous models, if you used an external battery supply, it would run out, and it would still draw a little bit of battery from the internal battery, or a little bit of electricity from the internal battery. So, you know, eventually the camera would just turn off. Here, in theory, I haven't tested it out myself yet, but you could, you know, go as long as you needed. So, but yeah, so let's.
And is that battery, I'm sorry, is that battery the Z battery, or is it a new battery for this camera?
So it is a Z battery. It's the same, yeah, same as previous models. So, and this will also be compatible with the VGC 4EM vertical grip. So you can have dual battery capacity, same grip you would purchase for the Alpha 9 Mark II or the Alpha.
Okay, so he just mentioned that it is compatible with their vertical grip that they already have on the market.
And you know, you had that question about the dedicated record button. So the nice thing is you can go in and you can customize pretty much, you know, all the buttons on the back. And definitely, this is one of the nice things about the Sony system, is just being able to have that capability. Because again, just like the My Menu, we may not put things where you want them, and so to limit you to that, you know, is not what we're trying to do. So yeah, so I would go here to the Setup tab and Operation Customize, and then here your custom key settings. So if I go into let's do Movie Custom Key Settings, and you'll notice again a new menu here. By default, you know, it's just going to follow what you've customized in the stills mode. But I really like how, again, you know, you've got the column on the left, and makes it just a little easier to kind of see. And then, of course, the corresponding numbers on the left side are highlighted on the right side on the diagram. So
that's awesome, guys. It really looks like they've added a little bit deeper customization, which is always good.
So by default, that's where the C1 button is, and that's where you know, you would activate white balance. C1 is still white balance. It's just the C1 button has moved. But if you want to put it back because you're using, you know, maybe the Alpha 7R Mark IV and the Alpha 7S Mark III, you don't want to confuse the custom buttons, then you can go in and completely customize this.
And then we were talking a minute ago about the weather sealing, and the question about the new heat sink and overheating and everything, which is not a problem with this camera. But can you talk a little bit about how that heat sink does not affect the weather sealing?
So the heat sink is internal. So, you know, if you look at some of the pro cams that we have, you know, because of the way that the processor is set up, and it generates quite a bit of heat, they've installed, you know, active cooling systems. In an active cooling system, you actually have to have a mechanism to move air around and dissipate the heat. So that usually means you're going to have a fan, and also you're going to have vents. So you know, it's really important that we kept the weather sealing as good as possible on this camera. So you know, the designers went in and put in a really amazing passive system that's completely sealed. So you're able to dissipate heat throughout the entire body, unlike before, but you're not having points of entry for debris or for moisture.
That is really interesting. That's something I'm interested in, just kind of the engineering of it all. Actually connected with one of our viewers who kind of works with product specialization. So I'm going to reach out to him and see if he can give me more info on the cooling, and see if I can get some more info out to you all about that. So make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want to see a lot more videos about all this stuff.
Image stabilization, which we call steady shot. Let me switch back over to, yeah.
Okay, they're talking about stabilization now.
We call steady shot, does work in conjunction with lenses, and you know, we can't guarantee the operation of a third-party lens and third-party accessories, but of course, if you're adapting, you know, Sony alpha mount, A mount lenses to the E mount here on this camera, you can have both the optical stabilization as well as the in-body stabilization kind of work conjunctively to really help stabilize if you're hand holding the camera and that type of thing. So of course, the 5 axes that you normally would get is of course the pitch, just like this, and a yaw, and then of course XY, which I can't really show you here, but basically shifting up and down, left and right on the same focal plane. And then of course the rotational, of course, by pressing the shutter button, you do have some sort of rotational motion that's going to be introduced. And so 5-axis stabilization definitely helps quite a bit with a lot of that. Now we've introduced a new mode to our steady shot, which is the active mode. So active mode, that's the only time that you will see a slight kind of crop in. And it's very slight, very minimal. I think it's about 10% of the frame, so very small amount. But what it's doing is it's using the gyroscopes inside to map out the type of motion that's happening, and then actually apply a lot more advanced kind of image stabilization. You'll see some YouTube videos, I'm sure, later on, kind of demonstrating those modes. It's amazing, and it's especially with the size of the sensor that we're talking about. Sony's really outdone themselves in terms of all the things that they've been able to pack into this little camera body.
Then we got a question. What is the highest all-eye resolution and frame rate internally?
Yeah, so again, let's switch to the inside of the camera and pull up the main menu. If I go up to the shooting tab and go over to image quality, this is XADCS all intra 4K, and I go to movie settings. You've got 24p, 30p, and 60p. So 24p, and again, in the all intra modes, you don't really get the option to change the bit rate. There's no lower options. It's basically kind of pedal to the floor. You're going to get the highest bit rates. Even if you try to select it, it's going to give you that warning. 240 megabits here at 24 frames per second. 300 megabits at 30 frames per second. And then 600 megabits at 60 frames per second. Okay.
Gotcha. And from Facebook, we got a question. Does the camera work with the new Commander remote?
Yes. So let's see. So I believe they're talking about the Bluetooth remote. There's a Bluetooth remote that we have. It does have built-in Bluetooth. Let's go down to the network tab. And you do have the ability to pair that Bluetooth remote. There is an infrared option as well, kind of a remote that we've had around for a while. You can use that remote as well. And then you can also use your smartphone. So if you've downloaded the Imaging Edge mobile application to transfer images, you can also use that during shooting mode to change some settings and to stop record and to monitor your video as well.
Dan, we've only got just a couple minutes left in this segment. I just want to ask you about the color science in the camera. Tell me about the color science in the a7S III.
Yeah, so the Alpha 7S Mark III, it's been a long time coming. A lot of people have been waiting for this for the last 5 years, ever since the Alpha 7S Mark II came out. And we've learned quite a bit since that time. And what especially is that we've learned is what customers want. And the color science, of course, is one of those things that has kind of been very subjective to a lot of folks. But the warmer kind of skin tone seems to be a popular kind of ask. And so one of the things that we've done is, since that last 5 years, we've introduced many different cameras like the Venice, the FS7 Mark II, the FS5 Mark II, and the FX9, which all have new color science. Let me switch back over to here. Yeah, they all have new color science, and we've gotten a lot of feedback around that, and customers are loving it. So that's based off of that, we do work quite a bit with our cinema and broadcast development partners within the company, and we share a lot of information, and so that's how we make better products. Because a lot of times it's the same customer. I've got several customers who are purchasing the FX9, and they're intending to purchase the Alpha 7S Mark III and run those together. So being able to match up the color is really key as well, because if you're shooting with multiple cameras, you want to be able to have that ability. Of course, picture profiles helps if you do some color grading in post. But right out of the camera, right off the bat, it's got really pleasing skin tones and color science.
Dan, we've got to leave it here for right now. Thanks again for joining us today. I know you'll be back later on to talk more along with Mike
said
Bubelow
just about nothing there in that
a
whole
moment, we'll be
rambling.
back with Renan Ostark and Kurt
maybe that's
Morgan.
enough to know that it is actually updated or changed at least, but he didn't give any kind of indication of which color profiles it actually includes. We know that it will have S-Log3. We saw that in one of the promos. We don't know if it'll have S-Cinetone yet. I haven't heard one way or another. If you have heard that anywhere, let me know in the comments, or if you're following something else while you're watching this, let me know in the chat, rather, if you've heard anything about that S-Cinetone profile. So you guys liking the presentation so far? That one was a bit lackluster for me. It was nice to see the menu screens in action and see him navigate those, but yeah, I know the poor guy seemed to be nervous or something. Seemed to kind of talk around issues a lot. Just a quick reminder, everybody, let's see here. There we go. Quick reminder, you can go to freecameraguide.com, freecameraguide.com, to get a very free camera guide to the a7s III whenever it comes out. Okay, I'll be September 24th whenever it ships. Hopefully it'll be to me by then. I'll spend the next couple of weeks getting that guide together and start sending that out to everybody who signs up for that. You'll be notified. It'll go directly to your email. So far, is this exceeding your expectations? Let me know in the chat. Is there anything that you've been surprised about? Personally, I am surprised about the 16-bit RAW. That blows my mind. I guess that's with a caveat that they even said we don't have anything that can actually receive that signal yet, I think is the way they worded it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like the external recorder, there's no way to get that 16-bit to that recorder just yet, and so I imagine that may be an announcement that Atomos makes soon, hopefully. It may even be like an SDI output as opposed to an HDMI. So yeah, if you know anything about that, let me know in the chat. What else? What else? Is there anything that has not been announced yet that you're disappointed? For me, it's the S-Cinetone. I haven't heard anything about that yet. I'm hoping that it's included in there. What rumors did you hear that maybe you haven't been confirmed yet? Actually, I want to go back over to the good old people at Sony alpharumors.com. Oh, first I want to go check out so it said that it was a 1 million, I forgot now. I'm gonna have to go back. All right, I looked up the monitor earlier, the LCD monitor, and I was gonna try to compare it to something else. So it has specs, viewfinder monitor. The monitor resolution is 1.4 million dots. Let's see. I forget what's good. I don't know in comparison. Let me go. How do I compare this? Mark to compare. Okay. Just gonna have to go Sony. Add this. Okay. This to compare. I'm going to compare it with the a7 III and Canon R5. I think that had a really good screen. then S1H had an amazing screen. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Welcome back, and thanks again for joining us today on our special live cast
Coming
about
back.
the a7s III. I'm joined now by Renan Osterk and Kurt Morgan. Renan is a Sony artisan of imagery, and Kurt Morgan is a director and filmmaker. And before we do our Q&A with them, we're going to show the film that Kurt and working with Renan as well made about the a7s III.
Let me switch us back over here. I'm still looking up these monitor comparisons. I'll be right back with that.
What is creativity to me?
I guess you could say it's my oxygen. It's how I breathe.
It's how I speak, it's how I communicate.
It's how I look at the world.
I don't think I'd be human without it.
Creativity is necessary. For me, it's therapeutic.
It's the difference between living and existing. Maybe now, more than ever, storytelling feels like it really means something.
There's a real chance for revolution, and I've used that word specifically.
As photographers, we design worlds and create these experiences for others to view through our work.
I pick up a tool, a camera, and that's my modality of creativity, but you can go out and you can express yourself any way you want. We all have a different thumbprint.
When I have a camera in my hand, it's when I feel most comfortable. When I'm out exploring, out shooting, that's when I feel most at peace.
Now the technology just keeps getting better and better and better.
The Alpha 7S changed my career. I mean, I could see in the dark, basically, and there's no other way to put it, right? A veil had been lifted.
It completely transformed what I could even imagine was possible.
It was just a huge deal back then, and it's still a big deal now, and for the S3 to come out is massive.
I think some people didn't actually think it would ever exist.
But if I know one thing about Sony, the Alpha 7S III is gonna be a complete game changer.
Come on, baby.
Woo! 120 frames per second at 4K. In the dark.
I feel like the things that your eyes are able to see with this camera, it's like you're in a completely different world.
Do you mind standing on the edge? This is mental, dude.
We're shooting at 20,000 ISO.
And that's perfectly clean.
The autofocus is by far superior.
The screen feels nice and solid.
Man, this flip screen is so nice.
Oh my God. How sick is that?
This is unreal.
Crazy.
I seriously want to go back to every place I've ever been and shoot it with this camera.
I don't think I've ever seen anything like that.
All right, so we're gonna take it from the top. Buckata, 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 chop.
When there is no income, when there is no job, when there is no project, like what does a camera mean? What does it do for you? It still gives you some sense of purpose.
Every once in a while, something comes around that changes the way we see the world.
It's one thing to have something that can shoot rad slow motion and low light, but to have it in a small package can help you tell more meaningful stories.
Some of the best shots of our lives right here, guys.
Isn't that the whole point of creativity, to share your stories, to make a connection? This is why I love shooting. It brings people together on both sides of the camera.
And I would say that in many ways, that's what the world needs more of. It needs more of your perspective, your vision.
And when you find other people that share that vision, that's when you find your family.
And we're back with Renan and with Kurt. Watching that film is just so much to take in there. Kurt, just kind of starting with you, tell me about the concept for the film.
Yeah, well, we wanted to.
Hey guys, I wanted to update you real quick. I'm gonna take their volume down just a little bit and update you on what I found. So I'm gonna move this screen over here and try to blow this up. Alright, as you can see, so I pulled up the B&H compare page, and let me do this. Here we go.
Going in a positive direction, and you know, from a technological standpoint, this camera is straight up the way forward. You know, we got this camera in about a month or so ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, and I had written a lot of ideas and shot concepts for this, and it was funny because I was kind of doing it in the dark. It was a little scary because I wasn't sure if the tech would meet the dream, essentially. And I think Renan probably had a similar experience. You're designing all these ideas, and oh, could it do this or could it do that? And I'm not totally sure. I have huge faith in Sony, but I don't know if my dreams kind of match. And you know, I got the camera. It arrived at my house, and I took it out in my street. It was pitch black. I turned it on, and I could see a coyote in front of me. I couldn't see it with my eye, and it just like it shocked me. And I was like, okay, we can do anything. Like, you know, so that was the kickoff.
Yeah, and I mean, just to clarify, this wasn't just about the camera and people using it. This was made with the A7S III.
Yeah, the whole video. And you know, we're used to. I mean, in my world, you know, we use all types of tools, and so does Renan. Not to speak for him, but you know, part of me wanted to, you know, I'm so used to using a big camera, and I was a little concerned to use a smaller, more compact camera just because I'm used to using a bigger one. And it just blew me away. Like, even watching it over and over, I've seen it 50 more times.
Okay, so sorry, you could not hear me earlier. I don't know what happened. I apologize about that. Essentially, what I was saying is the monitor for this camera, the A7S III, has 1.4 million dots. The A7 III has about 9 million dots. The Canon R5 has about 2.1 million dots, and the Panasonic S1H has 2.3 million dots. And so if you've ever used that Panasonic S1H, you know it is an incredible monitor on there. And so we're still sitting at about half the resolution of that monitor, but it is about, the A7S III is about a 50% improvement over the A7 III. So we are getting a little bit of an improvement, and you know, I'm sure they had to balance out the battery life and all of that stuff with the software. So we're getting an improvement, but not exactly what I wanted, but you know, it's better than nothing, so I'll take it. Okay, we'll go back to what they're talking about now. Sorry again about the volume issue.
It is somewhat fear-induced. You know, every step of the way, you know, the camera eased my my tension and made it a more exciting experience, because you know, you go out and you shoot the Milky Way. Typically, I would expose, you know, what, Renan, like 20-30 seconds
at least.
Yeah, and like, you know, I showed up at our first location, and I remember I went up on top of this hill. I'm like, I'm going to shoot the Milky Way handheld, and I know it's not going to work, but I'm just going to try. And I just set it for a 1 second exposure with the stability turned on, and
fired a shot and it was perfect. I'll
Yeah.
post it this week, but I was just like, just shocked. So the fear becomes alleviated through.
I'm not sure if I quite buy that he took a 1 second exposure of the Milky Way and it was perfect.
And Renan,
that seems
you,
a bit
you're also
hyperbole.
making a film.
It may be
it's gonna
workable,
be
but
within the next
if you've
week
never
or
done
so, I think,
astrophotography,
and
that
called
seems like
The
a little
Moonwalk.
stretch.
And not the same thing, but dealt with a lot of the same kinds of issues. You know, you really took a risk in what you were doing there. Talk to me about the Moonwalk.
Yeah, it's awesome to be part of all this. But the Moonwalk is essentially it was an idea inspired by a friend of ours who died a few years ago, and it was a combination of knowledge of the landscape and knowledge of climbing and highlining, which is slacklining, so walking a wire in a natural landscape. And this whole art form has progressed over the last, I don't know, 10 years to these incredible places. And it really just comes down to where you can imagine these lines and then where you can set up these art installations. And our friend Dean Potter figured out how to do one of these in the high country in Yosemite.
That is so incredible.
6 years ago, and it was this image of a tiny little figure walking inside the circle of the moon, and I think that really opened a lot of our eyes to.
He had to be using a crazy long lens to get that kind of
we're trying to
compression
do
with the moon.
our version of that with the greatest ability that the technology that we could get our hands on could allow us to do. And yeah, we're lucky to get our hands on one of the first units, and was working a lot with Kurt to dial in exactly how high we could push the ISO to get a clean image. And it turns out that it was really complicated and pretty stressful in the end, trying to get about 2 to 4 kilometers away from the subject as he's climbing. Andy Lewis is who we worked with. Is a total character.
They had to get 2 to 4 kilometers away from him.
To find
wow.
a set of towers that hasn't been climbed before, and then line it all up. And each full moon cycle for the last 4 months, we've been out in the desert, running through this cliffy terrain.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Bleeding, trying to find the place to line it up, essentially.
Just bleeding casually.
Yeah, right. Just running through the desert at night, bleeding, looking for the spot where the moon's going to come between two pillars. No problem.
So you can't really run through the desert over like that kind of.
Has anybody on the stream ever done much astrophotography or nighttime photography with whatever camera? I started doing astrophotography very, very casually. A couple of years ago, I think I started, and recently went with a good friend who is a nature photographer. He's a professional photographer and knows exactly what he's doing, and he told me about all kinds of stuff that was, like way down the rabbit hole of getting star trackers and stacking images and like well past my understanding, and it's pretty amazing. Does anybody do any nighttime or astrophotography?
Be able to get that in slow motion and without any noise and in different lighting conditions. And I know Kurt dealt with that, and he shot like 10 different scenarios that were all like that. Like the motorbike that shot was probably the most memorable because it like slows down in that like climax of the piece. But yeah,
I think that your shot of the I don't know if it was yours or Taylor's, but there was a shot of the drone shot at night with the moonlight. I remember we talked about this. So Renan and I are like, we need to get a shot under moonlight and with the drone. And I was like, my expectations were, no offense, Renan, like Renan's the best of the best. But I was like, I've never really seen it. And I was like, if we get it, it'd be sweet. And I got the footage back from them, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, it's just such a unique experience, and you did such a good job there.
And you guys both actually used the camera on drones. You weren't using another camera on the drone. It was the a7s III going up into the air.
Yeah, it worked great. It really did. I was pleasantly surprised at how great it worked.
You know, Renan, I was talking when we were talking with Kurt about the notion of risk taking, and the moonwalk. You know, it's got kind of like risk taking on top of risk taking on top of risk taking. First of all, slacklining, I think, is incredibly beautiful, and I think it's also like just incredibly insane because I could never do it. So there's that huge element of risk, but then just like the conditions that you're going to be using this brand new camera, you know, that's like extreme, you know, terrain, extreme lighting, super low lighting. There's a lot of chances you're taking there.
Yeah, and on top of that, Andy like took upon it himself to free solo when he was walking in the dark, and for him that was kind of the highest level of the, you know, mastery of the art form and beauty of the image. So yeah, when you experience those things, as Chris was saying earlier, work hard. Like you don't want any hindrances, and everything has to be there. And if we were in the wrong position and had to move like across like down a ravine that we had written off about 10 minutes before the event lined up, and then realized that we had no choice but to jump off the cliff and climb up the other side, with the camera built on a tripod. And yeah, you can't take those risks with bigger cameras. That's kind of what I said before, but
yeah,
those are like really special moments in life that you want to be able to capture, and that's what I've always loved about the whole Alpha series. And this is just kind of the one that I would take on any adventure, because you know you'll be able to get the shot in any light conditions, whether it's like middle of the day or middle of the night. And
right.
That's, you know, if you're in, you never know where you're going to find yourself, and that's really important.
Kurt, we got a question for you from YouTube asking if you used IBIS when you were shooting the film, the in-body image stabilization.
Yes, we used IBIS. We kind of used a combination. We were kind of, you know, honestly, we were testing everything about the camera, different codecs, different, you know, stabilization, hard sensor, just kind of going through all the motions. And, you know, it's shocking that you don't need a gimbal, like in most scenarios. I will say, you know, if you get the camera into a extremely high frequency, like, you know, vibration situation going 100 miles off road, you might want a gimbal, right? Mm-hmm. The thing held up, like I couldn't believe it, and it's almost like scary, right? It's just like, and yeah, I don't know or remember, but the crop factor when that's on, I don't even know if there is one, or maybe very, very, very small, like 10% or a small percentage, and so you don't really even notice anything from a framing standpoint. And yeah, no, it worked incredibly well.
What surprised you most about the camera, or impressed you most about the camera?
Well, I would say, you know, I always have a lot of fear when we get to the color. You know, to the very end of the line in a film is the magic moment, which is, you know, painting all the nice colors in and bringing out all those colors that are there. And working in 8-bit is challenging when it comes to color. And to be able to capture in 422 10-bit I wouldn't say saved our lives, but it brought a lot of life out of the image. And I think that was a huge thing. I mean, 4K 120 full readout is really big. I remember a shoot. You remember this, Renan? Must have been 12, 15 years. It was a long time ago, 10 years, I don't know. Renan and I went and did a shoot for a brand on the Grand Teton. And I was in a helicopter. I remember telling Renan, I was like, I want to bring you know, these big cinema cameras up the Grand, and I want to, you know, do these jib shots. And we were just having all these conversations. He's like, we can't. He's like, it's too heavy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want the like epic cinema look in the small form factor, but it didn't exist. And like, I had this like, you know, this rewind moment and thinking about that and talking to Renan. It's like, this is finally a camera that I like legitimately would shoot on a feature film or a television series or commercial, whatever, that I would feel really good about. And someone like Renan would be probably, right, feeling good about bringing that up a mountain. So you get kind of the best of both worlds there. You know, I think bottom line though, the thing is a absolute low light beast.
Yeah.
Like nothing touches it in the color reproduction. When you can see colors that you can't see with your eye at night, like you don't really see a lot of color at night, and it's all there.
Yeah.
And all that luminance is there. So it just brings so much life to things that you can't see.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what the heritage of the line is all about.
And you really see that in some of the stills that that Renan has. And we have an article on alphauniverse.com that showcases some of the work that Renan did shooting stills, where you really see that color and in that really, you know, low light, it just all kind of coming together. And Renan, what surprised or impressed you the most about the camera, and both for stills and for video?
I mean, it's all the things that everybody's been talking about. Every single little improvement from the low light is definitely number one. Being able to essentially see in the dark. We were using it as night vision running around in the desert because just trying to figure out where to go in the heat of battle there. But I just love all new audio features, the fact you can have time code. I don't think anyone has mentioned that in the live feed yet,
Yeah,
but
that's
for professional video, and you're using it on production or documentaries where you gotta sync audio. That's a huge.
It really is. That's a great point, and nobody's mentioned that I've seen so far.
And yeah, just the whole thing. There's a lot of little features, like even the one thing about the new touchscreen is like, and the fold out screen is you can fold it back into itself. So
Yeah.
I'm really hard on gear, and I often just throw my camera in a backpack because you don't have time, and you're climbing a mountain or doing different things. So it's nice to be able to protect the screen in that sense. The menus I love, and for video and stills, I'm not like the biggest nerd with menu customization and all that, but I could figure it out, and I had a still setting and a video setting during that moonwalk moment, so I could switch back and forth between the two. And there's just a lot of things that change, and if he's only taking 10 steps on the line, you want to be able to just do that with one turn. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, no, just really psyched to keep using this thing on both like bigger commercial jobs, but also these passion documentaries.
Nice. Well, I want to thank both of you for being here today. Thanks for answering our questions. Thanks for walking us through your productions. Kurt, the way forward's amazing, and Renan, really looking forward to seeing the moonwalk when it's out. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll be back in just a moment.
That segment was maybe a bit dull,
Shinobi,
just as far as like, I mean, hearing about the film was awesome, but I feel like we didn't really learn much new info about the camera. Maybe that wasn't the plan, but that was crazy how they got that shot with the moon so huge in the background and that guy slacklining across those two pillars in the desert. That was absolutely just intense. It kind of makes me want to go shoot a camping project or something. But yeah, time code, Cristobal, you're right. I've never got into using time code before, but I've never really been on any like professional sets or shoots where I've had to sync up everything. It's been easy enough just to sync up everything with audio before, but I know for pros who are out on shoots and have several cameras and all that data, that being able to sync everything with that time code is very important. And honestly, it's probably something I need to learn how to do, just to know, to be able to teach other people who ask. So yeah, that is awesome. They have the next section coming up is their, let's see, fit over here. So the next section coming up is their Tobii Shinobi Sony Alpha Imaging Collective. So I'm not sure what this is going to be. What else is interesting to you all? What have they not talked about yet that you want to know? Any surprises that you weren't expecting? The time code was a surprise to me. I wasn't really thinking much about that, but that is a nice surprise for everybody. Excuse me. Okay, so y'all going quiet in the chat. Y'all going quiet. Okay, here we go. Got the next section coming up. I don't know about for everyone else, but for me, like as soon as it started at 10 a.m. Eastern time, I got like 12 notifications of videos going live. So that must have been the embargo where all the YouTubers can release their content. So we're gonna watch this section, and I'll see what's next. But we may end the stream after this, so this may be our last section. So you guys let me know if you have any specific questions.
In your hands, and let's have a look at that.
Cool.
And welcome back, and thanks again for joining us.
Yeah.
Just work around me, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, let's do this.
Yeah.
And Toby, so talk to me a little bit about what you were shooting there as we're watching that little clip.
Okay, so Kurt had this idea of kind of linking me to music. I know that when speaking to the team about creativity in general, like one of the things I've talked about in the past is how music inspires me. And so I was kind of paired up with Brittany to shoot that piece, and it was just really inspiring to just kind of get out and use the camera and just have music be a part of the story, because I take inspiration from so many different areas, and just having the camera in hand and being able to kind of just vibe and just create, it was a cool experience.
Talk to me a little bit about like how you became a photographer and what brought you into doing this.
So it's kind of like I'd always had like I guess creative tendencies, but my background's actually in law. And I did law for like many years, but like photography was kind of like this escape for me. I used to work in London, and you should probably hear from my accent, and was doing law, and there was just so much I guess restriction in law. So like often arguing with my boss, or arguing with like the opposition, or arguing with the judge, arguing with the clients. Photography was like this escapism. It was really cathartic for me because there was just so much more control. And so every lunchtime I would just escape with a camera and just go around London and just shoot. And it just became a way of life, a way for me to kind of just escape the rigmarole and the rigor of litigation.
We were talking earlier, and you were telling me that you describe yourself as a visual storyteller. I think a lot of people use that term, but tell me about what it means to you to be a visual storyteller.
I guess to be a visual storyteller, I think nowadays there's so many different social media platforms, there's so many different mediums of like kind of like conveying messages, but I think the thing that is going to be important, regardless of whether it's TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, or anything, I think the art of storytelling is the thing that's going to kind of stay relevant. And I think in order for artists to stay relevant, they have to be able to kind of convey a message, and the message that people have been able to, or the way that people have been able to kind of convey messages from one person to another in the best form has been stories. Like, you know, people just find them more memorable. If you paint a compelling narrative, then, you know, storytelling is a good way to do that. And the reason why I really like this camera is it gives us so much flexibility to allow us to tell stories. I think for someone like myself who's just come up with photography as my background and developed a very distinct visual style, the 422 and the 10-bit bit depth, that allows you to get really close to what I'm used to in terms of like, you know, developing my stills. So just editing that video that, you know, we shot, that you showed just a minute ago, I was really amazed by how much color I was able to pull out of the files. It was game changing for me.
Yeah.
You know, I've used Sony's other stuff. You know, I had the first A7, and then I had the A7R2, A7R3, A7R4, and they're great for, you know, telling the stories. Yeah. But the jump up in what I was able to do with my color and the flexibility, and then being able to just switch to, you know, 4K, you know, 120 frames per second. I think the thing for me that the A7S III brings that you wouldn't get in other things is the flexibility. Just, you know, the flip out screen, the touch screen sensor, all these little things just make the camera really, really usable on a day-to-day basis. That just makes it really, really flexible. And I think that's what Sony's been really key in capturing just recently, just making usable tools for people to create stories and be visual storytellers.
Tell me how you think the camera is going to, you know, figure into your workflow moving forward.
So with photography being a key part of what I do, I'm still going to keep the A7R Mark IV, which is a photographic beast. Definitely going to keep that on me because I love the 61 megapixels. But in terms of me telling a story and me addressing that ratio between having video and stills, just evolving as an artist, I promised myself 2020 was going to be a year when I really kind of established myself as a filmmaker, a videographer. I'm going to have two bodies, and more recently, just using the two-body system has been amazing. So I'm definitely going to have both of those in my bag, and I love the fact that, you know, it's just one mount. You know, Sony's one mount system is really helpful. You know, I've got the FX9, and just being able to just use lenses from one place to another. It's that kind of forethought that I think is keeping Sony at the top right now.
And you mentioned that, or I mentioned at the top, that you're a budding filmmaker. You know, you're looking forward to using the A7S III and doing a lot more with the video side, I understand.
It's weather sealed, just means it's you can keep a second body in your bag and not have to worry. Like one of the interesting things about being a Sony user all the time is, like, over time, just seeing people who had the larger bodies and stuff, they didn't develop as quickly as I might have done, just because they would often leave their cameras at home. I typically kept a camera on me, like, pretty much almost every day of my life for the longest time. And you can do that because you have this small form factor. You can do that because it's lighter. The downside is you get kind of complacent sometimes, and you will end up just packing your bag full of everything. So, you know, maybe 4 lenses instead of 3. But definitely, you know, once I get my hands on it again, it's going to be just stuck in my bag because I just really want to dive deep into being a filmmaker. Because you know, a lot of time you will see people on, you know, social media just call themselves, you know, cinematographer, you know, director of photography and stuff. And I think there's a respect to the artistry, and there's a honing of craft that some people don't necessarily do. So I really want to kind of sit with it, and because of its small form factor, because it's light, I can do that.
Yeah, it becomes the camera that's always with you. You know, that's sort of cliche, but for you, you know, working with stills, with video, you really want to have the camera that you can have with you and be able to shoot, you know, whatever's inspiring you in the moment and not have limitation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's not to say that this isn't a camera that
Hey guys, so I think after this section, I'm going to hop off unless the next section seems super important. But I need your help. I need your help before we go. And so thinking about everything we've heard from the official announcement to all this Q&A stuff, give me like the biggest things, the biggest takeaways for you, because I want to put together kind of a wrap-up video for people who watch the stream, and for people who didn't get a chance to, maybe they're gonna watch some stuff today after they get off work, or when they get up in the morning in different parts in the world. Let me know what the biggest takeaway for you is, and that'll help kind of form this recap video that I want to make. So put them in the chat. Let's see what you have to say, and I'll kind of narrate that for everybody. Chat's quiet. Are you guys done? The higher bit rate and higher qualities are critical. Yeah, absolutely. Just overall, just solid codecs, solid video recording modes. And lots of good options too, you know, and they all seemed like really smart options. I remember when I was using the Panasonic S1H, it had a lot more video recording modes than the Sony, but there was a certain point where it's like, is anyone really gonna use that? You know, like it was kind of like, okay, if you only have a few gigabytes left on your SD card, this is when you would use that. But it kind of seemed impractical to include all of those options. So I feel like Sony has some really great options in their recording mode. So I think that's smart. Let's see, Flash-tastic. You said the new menu system, coupled with touchscreen, absolutely. I've said before that, you know, the menu system hasn't bothered me, and honestly, the lack of touch functionality in the menu screen has not bothered me, but having some sort of quick menu where you can navigate to really quickly while filming or while on set will be super helpful. So all of that is awesome, absolutely. And it seems like having the a7 III as a B cam and FX9 as an A will be ideal. Sure. Do you mean the a7S III as the B cam, or the a7 III? The a7 III is a great camera in its own respect. Absolutely. That's been my A cam over the a7S II for the last 2 years because I love it so much. But it will certainly serve as a great B cam. Biggest takeaway is that despite this camera being way dope, is it really worth the immediate upgrade now? Absolutely, Cristobal. That's and I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Please forgive me for my pronunciation. He said, I'm in a position where I want to buy a new camera and can, but see more value out of buying a Sony a7S II and saving $1,000 to buy an aperture light. But I'm a budget guy. Yeah, absolutely. You know, if there are other things that you are wanting to upgrade to right now, lighting, build out your kit, lenses, there's certainly a lot of different places that money can go. And so that's a good I'm gonna say too expensive for some people. Maybe not too expensive, but just, you know, maybe more than we were expecting, especially in different parts of the world. That really stinks that you guys are looking at 4,900 euros, and maybe even different rates at different places. Flashtastic, you said the improved stabilization. Yeah, it has some sort of, they didn't touch a lot on that. I was kind of frustrated that they have some sort of enhanced stabilization mode, it seems like, but they didn't go into really any kind of tech specs on like, oh, it has 5 stops or 8 stops. So I'm looking forward to maybe watching some of the YouTube videos that have recently come out and getting more detail on that. Dakar, you meant the a7S III. Gotcha. Thank you for that. Cost effectiveness, absolutely. Goodbye in for vloggers. with that articulating screen. Absolutely. And you know, if I would never suggest this camera to someone who just vlogs. If they don't create other content that they're producing for commercials or for clients, then they can probably get away with a lesser camera that still has that flippy screen. I would not buy this just for the flip screen. But if you're a vlogger that has a big audience and they expect awesome quality, and you're constantly getting time lapses and great B-roll and all that stuff with this, then sure, and if you got the budget to spend on it, spend money on whatever you want. Hoping that the color science is closer to the FX9 than all the other alpha cameras. Yes, I'm with you. And they specifically asked the one of the representatives of Sony Pro Support earlier about that, and he kind of danced around it a lot. He said, yeah, we've really been taking people's suggestions and working on the color science, but and so that leads me to believe that either he didn't know, which could be possible. He didn't seem to be the most confident person, or that the new color science is not exactly included in it, or they included like a dumbed down version of what's in the FX9. I feel like that's very possible as well. And so that may mean no S Cinetone, at least at launch, maybe. Who knows? They may still be working on it. What else we got here? Articulating screen, yeah, for sure. Yeah, if you're doing any kind of setup where where you're using for example, power, to get that power cord, so we're talking about the flip screen being in the way of the cables. If you don't have an external monitor, so you wouldn't need to flip that screen over, essentially. But if you don't have an external monitor and you still need to put in your power, or you still need to maybe an external recorder that doesn't have a monitor with it, then you're not going to be able to flip that screen around, at least while those cords are there. You're going to have to set it up and put your cords in, and then work around it, which is unfortunate. And again, you'll find a way. You'll find your own workflow. You'll find a way to deal with it. And so it's probably not as huge of a deal as maybe we think it may be. But it's definitely, it could have not been a deal at all if they would have put in the S1H system in there. Agreed, yeah. Yeah, I got it. As soon as we started the stream, the B&H sales page went live, and I got one. And so I think it's going to be a good upgrade for me. No, I don't think, Andrea, thank you. Thank you for chiming in. I don't think it's 15 stops of stabilization. It's 15 stops of dynamic range. And forgive me if I'm incorrect there, but I think you're thinking of the dynamic range. 15 stops of stabilization would be insane. Well, that's like saying 16-bit RAW. So I don't think I've heard that. I think it's the 15 stops of dynamic range that you're thinking about. But correct me if I'm wrong, for sure. Okay, coming up next, more Alpha Imaging Collective. Hey, guys, thank you so much for joining the stream. Thanks for chatting and giving me all the stuff. I'm going to go back through and take notes on all this. But for now, we're going to end the stream. Thank you so much. Again, go to freecameraguide.com, freecameraguide.com. Go ahead and sign up to be notified whenever the camera guide for the A7S III is released. And I'll send it to your inbox as soon as I get it. It's supposed to be shipping on September 24th, 2020. As long as 2020 keeps going the way it's going, who knows? We may not get this thing till Christmas. But I will get that out to you as soon as I can. Thanks again. I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel as well. Hit the bell for notifications. I'm going to be putting out a lot of content for this. Again, I really appreciate it. You guys have a wonderful day. And yeah, enjoy yourselves. See ya.
alphauniverse.com and the Alpha Universe podcast. And joining me now on our special live cast about the a7s III, we have Garrett King, Tiffany Nguyen, and Jess Santos, all members of the Sony Alpha Imaging Collective. And I want to welcome you all and thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Jess, I'd like to actually start by talking to you a little bit. This camera, the a7s III, has been called just today, you know, a low light beast, a low light monster, a low light, you know, one of the best low light cameras ever. You do a lot at nighttime, do a lot of shooting astro. Talk to me about how this camera is going to figure in to your workflow moving forward.
So I do a lot of stacking, so I can do very high ISO, and then I have to stack it to reduce noise. So being able to shoot at the high ISO and have very little noise might eliminate the need for stacking. I don't know. And then also for time lapse, it's going to be just amazing to be able to work with something that's so sensitive to light and work with time lapses that are single shots strung together. So I'm really excited for that part of it.
What is it about night photography and astrophotography that excites you?
So I've always been super fascinated with the stars. When I was little, I used to go and look at the stars, and I like to learn all about the constellations and all the stories. And so being able to go out and capture those stars within my photos really inspires me, and I like to include like some storytelling elements to that. So just the experience of being out under stars and in dark places with very little light pollution, and being able to look up and see Milky Way with your naked eye, and then being able to photograph it and see what comes through the camera that you even can't see with your eye is really what I really enjoy doing and capturing.
Tiffany, I know you're also big into shooting a lot of astro. Tell me about what it is about astro that you really like.
What I like most about astro is being able to really just step out in complete darkness and turn your camera at the sky and capture something that the naked eye can't see, and then being able to share that with someone else is just absolutely incredible to me. There's so much out there that I feel like when you look out, you kind of just let your mind wander because you don't know what's out there, and there's so much that's like unknown, undiscovered, and for me, I find that really fascinating. I'm really intrigued by that.
Yeah, I think that both you, Tiffany, and Jess, you talk about being able to see things that you just can't see any other way, and you know that's kind of one of the things that astrophotography really does for people. It's not a matter of like you're capturing something that you've seen. You're actually capturing something that your naked eye can't see at all. And when you've got a camera that can go to super high ISOs and be able to do this all like in one frame, it's a very different experience. And being able to see that image come up, that Milky Way shot with all the stuff that you just can't see any other way. Like photography opens up that world to you. That's what really gets me about astro.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it almost gives you like a new pair of eyes shooting on a camera like this. I mean, it's pretty, me and Jess, we were out shooting, and we were both kind of practicing shooting like handheld shots at the Milky Way. They're like, "Oh, give it a shot." We're like, okay, sure, whatever. We'll just like entertain you guys and get this handheld Milky Way shot. And I remember us both standing there shooting. And we were like, holy, like these are actually decent shots. Like so little noise, so crisp and sharp. It was pretty awesome when we were out there.
Yeah, and that's a handheld Milky Way shot you're talking about. I mean, that's crazy. Garrett.
I remember.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No.
When you're shooting, you're using bright monitoring to set up your composition. And with the S3, like you really didn't need bright monitoring. You could see through the live view display, and that was really pretty sweet.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, bright monitoring is a really cool feature that allows you to, like when you're shooting in really low light situations, be able to see on the monitor much more clearly and actually get much crisper focus and composition than you can without it. And for astro, to be able to see those pinpoint stars as you're focusing and composing is just, it's a kind of a game-changing tool that is unique to mirrorless and is in the Sony Alpha cameras. Garrett, over to you. Let's talk a little about what you do and where you see the a7S III working for you going forward.
Sure. So I feel like I do a little bit of everything. Sometimes I'll do some night stuff, but most of the time it's like blue hour, where it's getting